Hello everyone, welcome to Cloud World. My name is Santiago. So in today's video, we'll be speaking about a great service that the Azure portal has to offer. In this case, is the Azure Service Bus. So the Azure Service Bus is this kind of services that allow you to build distributed application or application that can be resilient when built and created into the cloud ecosystem. So that means if a component goes down, the application can still work or can work in the near future when the other component that was failing was actually coming back into operation. So the service bus is going to be a initial service that is available throughout the Azure portal and is based on messaging. So let's explore these different components that we have available in the Azure Service Bus to understand how they work. So before trying to understand what is the Azure Service Bus, we need to understand a very important concept that is present in distributed applications. So that will be the producers and the consumers. So let's start with the producers. So the producers are actually different type of applications. So if you take a look into this example, the producers could be an Azure function, it could be an API deployed maybe into Kubernetes, it could be an application or an API deployed in the Azure Web Apps, Logic Apps, and services like that. And also could be an application deployed in the Container Apps services in Azure. It doesn't matter too much what is deployed, as long as this library can interact via the SDK or HTTP protocol with the service bus. The producer is going to be that part of the application that will be creating messages that are going to be sent to other systems. On the right, we will have the consumers, and this is the second part that is actually pretty important to understand service bus. So the consumer, as the name states, is actually those part of the application that are consuming the messages that the producers are trying to create. So in short terms, a producer will be creating a message, the message will be sent to the bus, in this case the service bus, and the consumer will be taking those messages in order to process them and do whatever they need to do in order to complete the operation. Now with that basic knowledge in hand, we can understand what is, for example, a queue or a topic. So let's start with a queue. The queue is actually a system where a producer produces one or multiple messages and send those throughout the service bus namespace into a particular queue. The queue is going to store those messages, and those messages are going to be delivered in first in and first out, or also known as FIFO. This means that the message delivered to one or more competing consumers are going to be sent into those. One important thing that you notice into the designing here is that the queue will be sending the message to only one consumer. You could have multiple consumers trying to consume the messages from the queue. For example, when you have a deployment in the Kubernetes cluster and you have multiple replicas of the pod attending the request, one of them is going to receive this message, but not all of them. This means you have to be ready to understand that when you send a message to a queue, a single consumer is going to be able to pick up that message and make something useful from it. Quite the contrary, if we speak about topics, we have the scenario where the producers can send one or multiple messages into the topic, but the major difference, as you can see into the diagram, is that you could have multiple components in the consumer side subscribing to that topic and consuming those messages. So when we create a topic, we have a secondary parameter or a configuration that is known as a subscription. So for each one of these individual components that we can see in here, this one will be associated to a particular subscription. So when a message is sent to the topic is going to relay the message to all the subscriptions that exist inside that topic. So if the topic receives a message, all the consumers are going to be receiving those messages. One of the important things to mention in here is that in a more advanced scenario that we will be covering in the near future is that you could have filters where you choose which subscription receive which messages from the topic depending on the requirement that you have. Just to keep it that simple in this example, when you write a message into a topic and there are no filters on anything like that, all the consumers that are described as a subscription into the Azure portal will be taking those messages. Now that we understand what there are queues and topics and how the service bus namespace provide those into our solution, it is important to understand that you need to choose the proper design in your application in order to know how you are going to treat messages. Mostly the service bus offers two basic implementation on how to treat the messages once they are sent into the service bus and the consumer are actually taking those. One of those is the receive mode, which is the receive and delete. So that means when the service bus receives a request from the consumer, it marks the message as deleted. So when a consumer consumes that message, it means that it's going to be removed from the queue or the topic in this case. Contrary to the pick and load mode, in this mode we receive the operation, and this because mostly like two stages. So on the first part, the consumer receives the message and can make any process with it. And the application itself throughout the code is the one that selects when the message is going to be deleted or maybe even abandoned if we actually maybe want to skip the message or there is a problem trying to process it. The pick and lock is also pretty useful when you want to retrieve a message maybe into the future. Let's say your application fails to process a particular message in one particular moment. If the application goes down, if you are working the pick and lock mode, the service bus will be resending that message eventually, so the consumer can take advantage of that message and make the proper processing. From here, you can have multiple options throughout the code. You can choose to send your message to another service bus or another queue that is usually known as the dead letter, where we send messages that we're unable to process, and those into the dead letter are actually pretty helpful for debugging or developer or for the QA team in order to try to figure out why one particular message was not processed, or there's actually an error with the application. So with this description, we cover what is mostly the basic concept of the Azure Service Bus, how it works, and what are the multiple pieces that we have in order to start working with it. On the next video, we will be using the Azure CLI. We are going to be creating a Service Bus namespace. We will do an example on how to create a topic as well, and a queue too. And in the video after, we will be working with the SDK in .NET in order to be able to produce messages into the Service Bus. And also we are going to be working on a consumer in order to consume those messages using the AKS cluster for both cases. Thank you for watching this video, and see you in the next adventure.